My name is Eleanor Nora Whitfield, and I'm 64. What I'm about to share reshaped my life beyond recognition. The day we buried my husband, Theodore Theo Whitfield, was the quietest day I've ever lived through. There, beside the new mound of earth in Cedar Bluff, a small Midwest town that still smells like cut hay and hot asphalt in summer, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I'm alive. That's not me in the casket. My fingers went cold. I typed back, clumsy and shaking. Who is this? The reply arrived so fast it felt like a breath against my ear. Can't say. They're watching. Don't trust our sons. Something ripped in me. My world tilted as I looked at my boys, Adam and Lucas, standing by the casket with careful, composed faces. Their tears looked staged. Their embraces had no warmth. For 42 years, Theo had been my partner, my safe harbor, the meaning threaded through my days. I met him when I was 22, in a place called Cedar Bluff, a map dot you miss if you blink at the wrong time on the highway. We were small-town kids who learned patience from long winters and gratitude from hand-me-downs. I scrubbed floors and cooked for families to help my ailing mother. Theo fixed derailleurs and trued wheels in the bike shop his father left him. We had holes in our shoes and nickels in our pockets, and a kind of love money can't imitate. The first time he spoke to me is burned into memory. A Tuesday, sky washed clean after rain. I was walking to the market in a faded green dress, the hem threadbare. Theo stepped out of the shop with grease along his knuckles and a smile shy enough to steal the breath from my chest. "Morning, Nora," he murmured. "Want me to look over your bike?" I didn't own a bike, but I found a reason to linger. That first chat became evenings under the giant oak by Town Square Park. Became whispered promises a year later. Became a small wedding with paper carnations and hope big as the sky. The beginning was lean. We moved into a tin-roofed two-bedroom that sang when it rained. We'd set out pots like an orchestra, catching drips while laughing. Theo worked from dawn to dusk. I mended dresses and hemmed jeans for town ladies. When Adam arrived, my heart found a new size I didn't know existed. 2 years later, Lucas came streaking into our world, just as perfect. Theo took them fishing on Sundays, taught them to hold a wrench, told them stories until their eyelids gave up. I fed them, patched their jackets, kissed their foreheads when bad dreams prowled. For a long time, I believed we were a close family. Time sands away illusions. Adam, always sharp-eyed and hungry, started questioning why we lived so simply, why our car coughed past shiny new ones. Lucas, always his brother's echo, followed. At 18, Adam turned down Theo's offer to work at the shop with a sneer I still taste. "I'm not getting filthy in some tiny shop, Dad. I'm going to be somebody." Theo said nothing, but at night he'd sit on the porch steps, staring at a sky full of cold dots. That rejection hurt more than he let me see. It was like Adam had spit on the way that built him. To my surprise, Adam carved out a quick name in commercial real estate in the city. Lucas joined him. The money flowed, more than Theo and I had ever counted. Pride swelled in me at first. They had outrun the poverty we couldn't shake. But joy thinned into something else. Calls shortened, visits shrank, and when they did show up, they arrived polished in suits, parroting cap rates and leveraged deals, looking around our home like it embarrassed them. "Mom," Adam said on one rare visit, "you and Dad should move. This place is falling apart." He wasn't wrong, but our house was a book of our life. It raised our sons, held 1,000 small dinners, listened to all our fights and reconciliations. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. Theo leaned into his quiet wisdom. "Money changed our boys, Nora. We're not enough for them now." I kept pretending. They were busy. Of course they were. They'd circle back. Someday we'd get our Sunday dinners back, the cluster of coats by the door. Deep down, I knew Theo saw something I couldn't bear to face. We had lost them long before we ever lost him. I just didn't know how deep that loss went. The real shift came when Adam married Sloane Aldridge, a city woman with a talent for smiling without showing any warmth. The first time she stood on our porch, her heels sank into the dirt, her red dress foreign against our peeling paint. She extended just the tips of her fingers when we greeted her, studied our living room like she'd wandered into a museum of rural life. At supper, she separated the meatloaf into tidy squares and barely ate. Adam fell over himself, apologizing for small things he'd never minded. "We'll take them to a restaurant next time," he whispered, thinking I couldn't hear. But I heard. Every word pinned me sharper to my chair. Lucas stayed single but learned the same distance. He popped by on holidays, always itching to go, scrolling through messages while pretending to listen. "Mom, I've got to head out. Early meeting," he'd say, already halfway to the door. The warmth bled from our traditions. Christmas became neat and short. They brought lavish gifts we didn't need and left early, relief obvious on their faces. Theo's hands lost a little strength. I needed brighter light for my stitches. Still, we refused to ask our successful sons for help. "You know what stings the most?" Theo said one sunset as we nursed coffee. "It isn't their bank accounts. It's that money made them think we don't matter." He was right. It wasn't just their income that changed. Their hearts had been renovated too, and we no longer fit the floor plan. It escalated when Adam bought a $200,000 house in a gated neighborhood in the city, and Lucas followed with a $150,000 condo not far away. Suddenly they were men of means. "You should sell and move into a community," Sloane suggested coolly one afternoon. "There are lovely places for your age, comfortable, amenities." The word community landed like a slap. After 40 years of sweat and saving, after raising 2 sons inside these walls, she was penciling us into a waiting room. "We don't need a home," Theo answered, dignity braced in his spine. "We're fine in ours." But Adam and Lucas wore their agreement on their faces. We'd become a problem to solve by any efficient method. Soon the hints turned into blueprints. Adam showed up with a manila folder. "Mom, Dad," he said in that polished tone he'd perfected. "I've been thinking about your future. The house is worth maybe $1,000 on paper. If you sell, I can add something and get you somewhere nicer, a better place." There is no better place than a home woven with decades of ordinary joy. To Adam, everything was a ledger. "And Dad should retire," he added smoothly. "He's 70, time to rest." Theo's eyes carried oceans of disappointment. "Work isn't a curse for me, son. It gives me breath." "You could get hurt," Lucas chimed in, ever the chorus. "Accidents are dangerous at your age." They dressed impatience as concern, but there was urgency underneath, the kind that has nothing to do with love. Months grew tight. They brought agents through our home without asking, got an appraisal like we were dead already, talked what's best for everyone. "Look," Adam said over a stale dinner, "Sloane and I want kids soon. Expenses go up. If you sell and downsize, that money could serve as an early inheritance." Early inheritance, asked for while our lungs still worked. I couldn't even find words. Theo's jaw tensed. "When your mother and I die," Theo said softly, "you'll receive what is ours. While we live, we decide." "Don't be stubborn," Lucas snapped, a hard edge I'd never heard. "You can't stay stuck in the past." That night we didn't sleep. For the first time in our marriage, we talked about the possibility that our boys weren't who we'd believed. Theo's eyes carried a worry I had never seen grow so large. "Something's wrong," he said. "This isn't just hunger or haste. It smells darker." I didn't yet know how right he was. I couldn't imagine our sons were sketching a plan that would tear our lives apart. The last normal talk I had with Adam was 3 weeks before Theo died. He came alone, face stern, hands restless. "Mom," he said at the old kitchen table with the worn edge where he once carved his initials, "no matter what happens, Lucas and I will look after you." At the time, those words soothed me. Remembering them by Theo's grave, they chilled me. No matter what happens, what did he already know? The thing that took everything from me happened on a Tuesday. Theo left early for the shop like he'd done for 4 decades. I was in the kitchen making his favorite lunch, meatloaf and mashed potatoes, when the phone screamed. "Mrs. Whitfield?" An unfamiliar voice asked. "This is Memorial Hospital. Your husband suffered a serious incident. Please come immediately." The world smeared. My legs folded. I held the doorway to keep from falling. "What happened? Is he breathing? Is he—" "Ma'am, just come as soon as you can." My neighbor Doris drove me because my hands wouldn't hold keys. When we arrived, Adam and Lucas were already there. No one had called them. At least I hadn't. In my panic, I stuffed that misplaced detail into a corner of my mind. "Mom," Adam said, wrapping me in an embrace that felt staged. "It's bad. They say there was an explosion at the shop. Burns, head injury." Lucas's eyes were red, but he looked more keyed up than heartbroken, like a man waiting on a verdict. "Can I see him?" I begged. "Immediate family, one at a time, 5 minutes," the nurse said gently. In the ICU, my knees nearly buckled. Tubes, machines, bandages wrapped almost everything I recognized. His chest rose with borrowed rhythm from blinking lights. I threaded my fingers through his, the only skin not covered in gauze. "Theo, I'm here," I whispered. "You're strong. You'll fight your way back to me." I felt the slightest squeeze. His eyes fluttered beneath the lids. He was trying. My brave man was trying. 3 days crawled by like winter. I slept in blue chairs designed by people who hate comfort. The boys took turns keeping me company, but their attention hugged the doctor's words. I caught fragments: insurance, coverage limits, beneficiaries. On day 2, Adam pulled me aside. We checked Dad's policies. He has $50,000 in life insurance. Workers' comp might pay up to $75,000. Why was money taking the front seat while my husband was fighting to live? "I don't care about any of that," I snapped. "I care if he wakes up." "Of course," he said, but cold calculation slid behind his eyes like someone flipping a switch. On day 3, Dr. Patterson, a kind-faced older man, gathered us. "Mrs. Whitfield, your husband's condition is critical. The infections are severe, and his brain injury is more extensive than we hoped. We have to be realistic." "What are you saying?" I asked, though I already felt the cliff edge. "We can keep machines going indefinitely, but meaningful recovery is highly unlikely." The room tilted. 42 years shouldn't end in institutional lighting and paperwork. "We want to try everything," I said, blurring with tears. Adam and Lucas shared a look that clanged in my bones. "Mom," Adam said in a careful tone, "Dad wouldn't want this. He never wanted to be a burden." I snapped upright. "He is not a burden. He is your father." "We get that," Lucas added, earnest mask in place. "But we also have to think of you. The bills." "Enough about money," I said, voice shaking. "Enough." That night I sat by Theo's bed and held his hand. "I don't know what to do," I whispered. "They say there's no hope, but I can't let you go." His fingers tightened again. Tiny, almost not there. His lips moved. I called for help. By the time the nurse arrived, he was still again. She checked the monitors and shook her head. "Sometimes muscles twitch, ma'am. It doesn't mean awareness." But I knew what I felt. He was trying to tell me something. 2 days later, in a black pre-dawn, alarms wailed. Nurses ran. I nearly fell as I bolted to the doorway. They worked and worked. At 4:37 a.m., Theo was declared gone. Pain has a physical weight. Mine crushed my ribs. I collapsed on the bed rail, hugging what was left of the man who built my life with me. An hour later, the boys arrived with astonishing efficiency. Papers, funeral home numbers, insurance contact sheets. "We already spoke to Cedar Bluff Memorial," Adam said, voice transactional. "And we filed the claim." Lucas added. How could they be so organized so fast? Something was off. But grief is a fog that swallows instincts. The funeral landed on the following Monday. Adam handled every arrangement without really asking my thoughts. Cheapest casket, shortest service, as if grief were an errand to check off. It's what Dad would have wanted, he said when I tried to protest. Simple, no fuss. Theo deserved time. He deserved a community farewell. Instead, the sky was gray, and few people came. Just us, Doris, Sloane, and the pastor. For a man who'd been an unofficial handyman for half the town, the emptiness rang wrong. Where are the men from the shop? I asked. We didn't want to bother them, Adam answered swiftly. Dad liked privacy. That wasn't true. Theo loved company, loved swapping stories over coffee. Why the secrecy? Why the rush? During the service, Adam checked his watch too often. Lucas fidgeted. Sloane scrolled behind a veil. Goodbye looked like impatience. When it was my turn to toss a handful of dirt onto the casket, my legs shook so hard Doris had to hold my elbow. The thunk of earth on wood is the sound of doors closing. And then, the buzz in my purse. A text. I'm alive. That isn't me. The letters blurred. I thought grief was inventing hallucinations. I texted back with clumsy fingers. Who are you? Can't say. They're watching. Don't trust our sons. My phone slid from my hand as if it burned. Doris bent to retrieve it. I flinched. Instinct screamed to keep this and everything around it close to my chest. You all right, Mom? Adam asked, concerned face carefully arranged. I searched his eyes for a tell. Everything on his face looked plausible. Too plausible. I'm fine, I lied. I need to go home. That night, the house felt like a tomb. I replayed the last week with cruel clarity. The explosion story had never sat right. Theo was meticulous, borderline obsessive about safety. And the boys arriving at the hospital before I was even called. How had that happened? Then the money. From day one, they had spoken about policies and payouts, like they were checking items off a list. I went to Theo's old desk. Beneath receipts and warranties, a metal lockbox held our life. Deed, policy pages, shop documents. There was the $50,000 policy Adam mentioned, but it had been amended 6 months ago, from $5,000 to $50,000. Theo never discussed increasing it. Who urged him? I kept digging and found something worse, a workers' comp policy purchased 2 months prior. Payouts in case of workplace death. A small fortune for people like us, and a tempting prize for someone without a conscience. My phone buzzed again. Check the bank. See who's been moving money. This wasn't a prank. Whoever texted knew too much. The next morning, I went to First Cedar Bluff Bank. Mrs. Thompson, the branch manager who's known me since I signed our first check, hugged me with real sorrow. Nora, I'm so sorry about Theo. What can I do? I need to see our statements. In the last 3 months, sizable withdrawals, $1,000 in January, $3,000 in February, $4,000 in March. Money I didn't move. Who authorized these? I asked. Your husband came in, she said. He said he needed repair funds. Theo never made big withdrawals without a talk, and he would have told me if the roof was falling in. I asked to see the slips. The signature was his, but shaky, uneven. He had a steady hand. Did he come alone? Mrs. Thompson squinted, thinking. Twice he was with one of your boys. Pretty sure it was Adam. Said he was helping with paperwork. Adam helped, did he? That afternoon, another text. The insurance was their idea. They pushed it for your protection. It was bait. Evidence stacked like firewood. The inflated policy, the secret withdrawals, Adam's role, the chilly efficiency at the hospital. But I needed more than smoke. I needed flame. Go to the shop, the next message read. Look in the desk. You miss things. For the first time since the accident, I unlocked the shop door. The air tasted of metal and dust, not ash. Nothing looked singed. There were no scorch marks, no char, no busted casing on the machinery, no sign that anything had exploded. "Where's the machine that blew?" I said into the stillness. I opened Theo's desk drawers and found a small notebook, his slanted writing across the page, dated 3 days before his accident. "Adam keeps insisting I increase the insurance. Says it's for Nora. Doesn't feel right. Don't like his push." Beneath it another line, "Lucas brought papers. Says it's to modernize the shop. I don't understand them. Why the rush?" He had sensed it. He had felt something predatory circling. An envelope with my name waited under the ledger. I slit it with my thumbnail. "My Nora, if you're reading this, something went wrong. The boys keep pressing about insurance, selling the house. Sloane's voice is in this too. Yesterday, Adam told me to be careful. At my age, any accident could be fatal. It felt like a warning, not concern. If anything happens, don't trust anyone, not even them. I love you." The letter shook in my hands. Theo had tried to leave me a map out of the fog. That evening, Adam arrived carrying a bottle of red and his best good son, a smile. Sloane trailed behind him, a condolence mask pinned to her face. "Mom, we've been thinking about your future," he said, already pouring himself a glass. "The insurance will come through. It's about $15,000 between policies." "How do you know the exact number?" I asked, keeping my tone light. "I helped Dad with the paperwork," he said. "He wanted to be sure you'd be comfortable." Theo never wanted that policy. He'd written as much. "And what should I do with the money?" I asked. Adam's eyes gleamed. "Downsize, or better yet, a really nice retirement community. You'll have friends, nurses, activities. Lucas and I can manage your money so it lasts. Investments, compounding." "Manage," I repeated, tasting the word like something gone sour. "It's for your own good," Sloane added, sticky sweet. After they left, rage and fear braided in my chest. My sons had killed their father for payouts, and now they wanted to shepherd me off stage. Tomorrow, go to the police. Ask for the report on the accident. "You'll find contradictions," the next message read. At the Cedar Bluff Police Department, Sergeant O'Connell, a man whose kids Theo once taught to ride without training wheels, checked the system. "Report on the shop explosion?" he repeated, baffled. "We have nothing logged." "But my son said—" He made a call, then another. "Your husband came to the hospital on Tuesday. Medical notes indicate poisoning, not explosion. Methanol detected. Enough to cause blindness, brain injury, likely death." The word poisoning sucked all air from the room. "Why wasn't I told?" I asked, shaking. "The immediate family who signed requested confidentiality to prevent speculation," he said gently. "They said you were too fragile for technical details." Immediate family, Adam and Lucas. They hid the truth, rewrote the story, and expected me to sit quietly while they erased evidence. "Mrs. Whitfield," O'Connell said slowly, compassion weighted across every syllable, "if you suspect wrongdoing, we can open a case." I had more than suspicion. I had a rising certainty. That afternoon, Lucas came over with supermarket flowers and the same pasted-on sympathy his brother wore. "How are you holding up, Mom? You look tired." "I'm thinking about the future," I said, watching his eyes. "That's good. Adam and I were saying we should list the house quickly. The market is hot. You need liquidity." "Why the hurry?" He rattled off reasons. Old houses depreciate, funeral costs, medical bills. More lies. The funeral had been insultingly cheap. Insurance covered any hospital balance. "Lucas," I said, "you knew there wasn't an explosion." For a split second, his pupils widened. Panic, then gone. "What are you talking about?" "I went to the station, no report. The hospital found methanol." His hand shook just enough to spill coffee on his jeans. "Grief is messing with you," he said, standing. "You need rest." He stepped onto the porch and made a call. His voice was urgent through the glass. That night, my phone chimed long. "Nora, I'm Stephen Callahan, private investigator. Theo hired me 3 weeks before the hospital. He feared Adam and Lucas. They poisoned him. Methanol slipped into his morning coffee." I have recordings. Meet me at Corner Cafe, back table, tomorrow at 3 p.m. Don't tell anyone. I finally had a name to attach to the messages and the promise of proof. I also knew the boys had advanced their timeline. They'd threatened institutionalizing me. If I didn't move now, I'd wake up behind a locked door while they wired every last dollar out of my accounts. War had begun. I was one older woman facing two men who had my cheekbones and Theo's jawline. But I had something they'd tossed away. I had the truth, and the truth has a way of finding daylight. The next day, I dressed deliberately in my deep purple serious dress. I walked to the cafe, every shadow a potential spy. At 3 sharp, a tall, gray-haired man with sharp, kind eyes stopped at my table, a battered folder tucked under his arm. "Mrs. Whitfield?" he asked softly. "Yes." "I'm Stephen Callahan. I'm sorry for your loss. Theo was a good man." He laid the folder on the table and slid out a small recorder. "Before I play this, know it will hurt." "I'm ready," I said. "I've been bracing since the first text." He clicked play. Theo's voice poured into the space, and my heart clenched. "Stephen, if something happens to me, it won't be an accident. Adam and Lucas keep pushing to increase my life insurance. Yesterday, Adam brought forms, said it was to protect Nora. Hidden in the fine print were clauses that favor them. My chest tightened. Hearing him felt like a resurrection and a second loss at once. Stephen pressed the button again. New audio. Adam's voice clipped and cold. "No, we can't wait. The old man is getting suspicious. I already have the methanol. It passes like a stroke. Mom won't be a problem. After Dad goes, she'll be so broken we can handle everything." Tears spilled before I could stop them. That was my son. The baby I once rocked to sleep was planning murder like scheduling a meeting. "There's more," Stephen said quietly. He cued another clip, Lucas on the phone. "Everything's in place. Tomorrow morning, Adam will add the methanol to Dad's coffee. We told him it's a vitamin supplement. First dizziness, then confusion, then coma. By the time anyone wonders, it won't matter." I pressed a napkin to my mouth. "How did you get this?" "Theo asked me to wire the house phone and place a few discrete devices," he said. He was scared and couldn't name why. "We placed them legally with his consent." He slid photos across the table. Adam leaving a hardware store with a small bottle, time-stamped 5 days before the hospital. He paid cash and used a fake name, but cameras don't lie. He added spreadsheets. Their finances don't match their lifestyles. Adam owes $70,000 to a private lender. Lucas is down $40,000 to gambling houses. They were drowning. So it was greed and panic. We weren't parents anymore. We were 2 accounts to liquidate. "Why didn't you go straight to the police?" I asked. "They paid off the attending doctor to mark the death as heart failure from a work accident," Stephen said. "I needed more than tapes. Now, with methanol in the hospital record and these recordings, it's enough." He looked at me carefully. "There's one more thing." My blood went cold. "What?" "They plan to kill you next." He pressed play again. Adam and Lucas, voices together. "After Dad's insurance hits, we deal with Mom. Make it look like grief. Suicide note, maybe. We're the only heirs. House, savings, policies. Call it $200,000. The room spun. I gripped the table edge to steady myself. "Mrs. Whitfield," Stephen said, voice steady, "we can stop them. We take this to Sergeant O'Connell tonight. We move before they try to have you declared incompetent tomorrow morning with Judge Miller." I stood. "Let's go." "Before we do," he said, sliding one last document across the table, "you should see this." A clinic report dated 3 days before the hospital admission. A full physical for Theo. No heart disease, normal blood pressure, clean labs. He'd been just fine. That was the missing piece. Proof that natural causes were a lie. I took Stephen's hand. "Thank you for honoring him." That night, we walked into the station at 8 p.m. The place hummed low. I told Sergeant O'Connell exactly what I was there to do. I need to file a murder complaint, I said plainly. My husband was poisoned by our sons. For 2 hours, we laid it all out. Recordings, photos, account statements, the pristine clinic results. O'Connell listened and grew grimmer, then called the district attorney, who came in despite the hour. After reviewing everything, the DA authorized arrest warrants. "We move at dawn," he said. "We don't give them time to shred anything." Outside, Stephen looked at me. "Do you want me to stay with you tonight?" "I'll be fine," I said, for the first time believing it. "I have justice on my side." I didn't sleep. Instead, I studied the glow on our picture frames. Touch walked through rooms we painted together. For the first time since the hospital, pain wasn't the only thing I felt. There was relief coiling, preparing to spring. At 6 a.m., my phone rang. Adam. "Mom, you need to get to Lucas's place now. Something terrible happened." "What's wrong?" I asked, voice flat. "I'll explain in person." "Hurry." A trap. I poured coffee and stayed at the kitchen table. At 7:30, 2 patrol cars raced past my window in different directions. My phone rattled across the table as they called again and again. I let it dance and buzz. At 9, a knock. Sergeant O'Connell on the porch. "Mrs. Whitfield," he said, relief on his face. "We have them, both in custody, booked for first-degree murder and conspiracy." My legs shook, but this time with gratitude. "How did they take it?" Adam denied everything until he heard his own voice. Lucas tried to go out the back window. We chased him 6 blocks. That afternoon, Sloan showed up, mascara streaked, begging. "Mrs. Whitfield, please, withdraw the charges. Adam isn't evil. He was desperate. It's my fault. I pushed him." I looked at her without a flicker of softness. "Your husband poisoned mine. He planned to kill me. Get off my porch." She flinched like I'd slapped her and left. 3 days later, they exhumed Theo. The lab confirmed lethal methanol. The town exploded in whispers and headlines. 2 sons killing their father for payouts. People didn't have a drawer to put that in. The attending doctor who falsified the certificate admitted he accepted $5,000 in cash. He was arrested too. Stephen filled in the rest. Theo had hired him not just to gather proof, but to protect me if the worst came. He hadn't been paranoid. He had been careful. Love sharpens the mind like that. The trial was set for 2 months out. Reporters called it the killer son's case. The courthouse calendar cleared. People I didn't know stopped me in the grocery aisle to offer casseroles in fury. I pressed my black dress, the one from our wedding day, that I could still fit with a handful of adjustments. The fabric felt like armor now. Stephen promised to sit beside me from gavel to gavel. The courthouse was packed when the trial began. Reporters leaned forward with sharpened pencils. Neighbors shifted uncomfortably, and I could feel every eye on me, as if I carried the whole weight of Cedar Bluff on my shoulders. When Adam and Lucas walked in, shackled and dressed in prison orange, my heart twisted. They looked like my boys, but moved like strangers. I felt no pity, only the hollow ache of recognizing that the children I raised had been buried long before Theo. The prosecutor laid out the case with clarity that cut like glass. One by one, the recordings were played. First, Theo's worried voice, warning that if something happened, it would not be an accident. Then Adam, cold as stone, saying he already had the methanol. Then Lucas, explaining how symptoms would mimic a stroke. The jury sat frozen, some shaking their heads, others covering their mouths. When the tape played of them conspiring to kill me, a gasp rippled through the room, like wind through dry grass. I had to testify. My knees quivered as I took the stand, but my voice stayed steady. "I raised them with everything I had," I told the jury. "Theo worked until his hands cracked. I sewed until my eyes blurred. We gave them love and sacrifice, and they killed their father for money." Adam dropped his head. Lucas glared at me with defiance, though I saw tears he couldn't hide. Stephen testified too, explaining the hidden microphones, the photos, the financial records. The medical examiner confirmed lethal levels of methanol in Theo's body, demolishing the lie of a work accident. The defense tried to argue desperation, debts, outside pressure, but the evidence was iron. Greed doesn't excuse murder. The jury deliberated 6 hours. The silence in the courtroom when they returned was thick enough to choke on. The foreman rose, guilty on first-degree murder of Theodore Whitfield, guilty on conspiracy to murder Eleanor Whitfield. The judge's gavel landed hard, life in prison without parole for 30 years. My shoulders sagged as if a mountain had rolled off. Justice at last. The town couldn't stop talking. Some called me a hero. Others whispered I was heartless for sending my own blood away. But they hadn't heard the recordings. They hadn't read Theo's letter warning me. They hadn't seen the smugness in Adam's eyes when he thought he'd won. I knew the truth. 3 days later, Theo's body was exhumed. The lab report confirmed methanol beyond doubt. The town paper branded it the Whitfield tragedy, calling it the cruelest crime in memory. The doctor who falsified the death certificate was arrested for bribery and obstruction. Secrets unraveled like old rope. Sloane disappeared from town. I heard she moved to the city and changed her name. Some wondered if she knew, if she nudged the plan along. I'll never know, and it doesn't matter now. Lucas and Adam had chosen their own hands to carry the poison. The trial ended, but life had to keep moving. I donated the insurance payout to start the Theo Whitfield Foundation for Victims of Family Crimes. Blood money couldn't line my pantry shelves, but it could buy investigators for families like mine, counselors for children, lawyers for widows gaslighted into silence. Within a year, we were helping a dozen families. Within 2 years, dozens more. Every time someone found courage because of what happened to me, I felt Theo's hand steady on my back. 6 months after sentencing, I received a letter from prison. Adam's handwriting. Mom, I don't deserve forgiveness, but I regret everything. The debts blinded us. Tomorrow I'll hang myself. Tell Dad I'm sorry. I tried to reach the prison chaplain, but I was too late. Adam was gone by dawn. Lucas broke when he heard. They transferred him to the psychiatric ward after repeated suicide attempts. He sends me rambling letters sometimes, half apologies, half madness. I no longer read them. They sit unopened in a box on a high shelf. My peace comes first. Today, years later, I live quietly in our Cedar Bluff home. I painted the kitchen walls soft yellow, Theo's favorite color. I turned the bike shop into a flower garden. Red roses, white carnations, tall sunflowers that track the sky. Every Sunday I cut a bouquet and bring it to his grave. His headstone reads, "Beloved husband, betrayed father, honorable man, his love stronger than his death." Stephen still visits every Wednesday. We sit on the porch, drink coffee, and talk. Sometimes about cases he's taken, sometimes about nothing at all. He's become family, the kind you choose, the kind that never turns love into leverage. Reporters came last year for a documentary. One asked what I'd tell others in my shoes. Family is not an excuse for crime, I told her. Love isn't blind. Love with boundaries is real. If someone can harm you for money, they never truly loved you. It is never too late for justice. This year marked the 5th anniversary of Theo's death. We held a ceremony at the foundation headquarters. More than 200 people came, neighbors, survivors, officials. Stephen spoke. Theo Whitfield died because of his son's greed, but his legacy lives in every family that found courage through his wife. I cried, not from grief this time, but from pride. At night, I sometimes look at old photos. Adam and Lucas laughing in the yard, chasing fireflies, hugging Theo. I mourn those children. But the men they became, they chose their road. I can only pray the boys I loved found some scrap of peace in another life. When I sit on the porch at dusk, coffee in hand, sometimes I swear I feel Theo's presence in the breeze that stirs the chimes. He knows I kept my promise at his grave. I found the truth. I fought for justice. And I turned our tragedy into hope for others.